Alright, YouTube. Tonight we're going to go over something that I think is important to let people know about, important to get my opinion out there. And as usual, I invite your video responses, your comments. I try to respond to all the comments that are directed towards me or that I have a feeling about. And I love getting video responses from y'all. It makes me feel like I'm doing something good. And as for the people posting negative comments, I've deleted your comments, and just keep it to yourself if it's overtly negative. I love constructive criticism. I thrive on it. But if it's just outright negative, keep it to yourself. So we'll dive right on in. We'll start with the 4 types of carriers. And when I say carriers, I mean people who carry a firearm, whether it be open or concealed or whatever. I don't want to say concealed carriers because some people carry open. Some people carry in odd fashions. You know, there's no limit on things that people do with guns, and it's scary, but it's good to know that Americans still feel free with their firearms. And you're gonna have to excuse me potentially during the video because I have been dealing with a bit of a cold mixed with some seasonal allergies. It's a mix of me riding my motorcycle with shorts and a t-shirt on like it's still summer, and also getting a little bit of this little bit of the fall allergies that I get every year. So you might have to deal with me sneezing or coughing a little bit, blowing my nose in the video, but oh well, I'm sorry. What can I say? So we'll get right into it. First, I want to describe the types of carriers that I see or that I know of. There's of course there's the trained, good-intentioned armed citizen, like me or you, hopefully you. If not, you need to work on that, in my opinion. But if you're somebody who doesn't carry a gun, that's cool also. You know, that's fine with me. I'm not somebody who's going to say that it is your obligation to do so. It's not. It's not your obligation. And there are some people that, while quite honestly they can legally do it and there's nothing prohibiting them, they probably shouldn't. And if you're one of those people, and you don't carry, I thank you to death. I thank you for being honest enough with yourself and society to know that you're not the best candidate for that. So, without further ado, a second type of guy that I see carrying is the cool guy. He carries some fancy ass gun in some weird ass way, but doesn't really train. You know, thinks nothing about whipping his firearm out, to show everybody, take the magazine out and pass it around, and everybody touch the gun because I'm a cool guy, and, whatever, then that's just fucking retarded. I'm guilty of letting people see my firearm, but, I mean, these people are like my brother. He's a law enforcement officer. I went over to his house once, and he noticed that I was printing a little bit, and he said, "Oh, you're carrying a firearm. That's cool. You mind if I take a look at it?" Well, I mean, this man's family, and he's a police officer, and I'm in his home, and we go out and shoot our guns together all the time. And he just was wondering what I was carrying, and if it was a new piece or whatever, just questions a brother would ask another family member. And so I've got no problem in that instance, telling him, all right, give me a second, is there a safe direction? And I'd unholster it and eject the magazine and check the chamber for him, and hand him the empty gun and let him check it out real quick. Or if he doesn't want to check it out, just lift my shirt up and say, oh, yeah, it's my Glock. It's the one I carry every day. Or my Sigma, the one I carry every day, just like my Glock. Those are the two that go into rotation for me as consistent carry guns, the Glock 19 and the Smith Wesson SD VE, or SD40 VE, the new Sigma. Excuse me. Third time's a charm. Don't encourage me, though. Okay, so you got that guy, the cool guy. You've got the non-violent or oh me, oh my carriers, I guess you could say. They've got a gun just because if they get robbed, they want to pull a gun out and be like, see, I've got a gun. You better back the fuck up. Those people, in my opinion, are dangerous. Usually undertrained, and they don't want to hurt anybody, and they probably won't. Sometimes their guns aren't loaded. Sometimes they just don't have the heart to use it if they have to, and those people get people hurt, can get themselves hurt, cause just a lot of trouble in general. And the reasons for that, if you're at all familiar with the subject, don't even need to be stated. And of course, the fourth type of person that I know is apt to carry a gun is the criminal, the common criminal. And that's never good, as we all know. And there are different methods of carrying. It's something you got to figure out for yourself. You can carry in different positions, different types of holsters, different type of guns, different type of way, open, concealed, shoulder, thigh, whatever the hell you decide to do is up to you. And as long as you're carrying responsibly, who am I to say? I'm not very judgmental about that kind of thing. As long as you're trained and you know what you're doing and you're being responsible, who am I to say how you carry? Just the one thing that I will openly speak out against is the people who I call fishers, the fisher guys, and they go out open carrying firearms, and either they go into a metropolitan area where it's not common and they know they're going to get called on, get the police called on them, or they carry an outrageous firearm, like people, who carry their AK on a sling or their AR on a sling, or whatever long gun on a sling or something like that, or they have a little shotgun holster for their short barreled shotgun or whatever, and they walk downtown wearing that shit. You people should be ashamed of yourselves, and you are doing nobody a service. Nobody, not even yourself. You wonder why the police stop you and question you and want to see your ID? It's because you're being a douchebag. Yeah. Who the fuck walks around with an AR-15 on their back? Who fucking does that? Somebody who is just dying for attention. That's who. And trust me, you're not helping anybody who enjoys their Second Amendment right by doing that. You're making us look like a bunch of nut jobs. This isn't Iraq. This is not Afghanistan. I've been to those places. I've got no qualms with walking around with my M4 in a war zone, on a military base, in a place where I am authorized to have it and use it and might, in fact, most likely will need it. You are not that. And if you were in the military and you're walking around with your shit like that, I hope you're doing it as part of a military demonstration, paramilitary demonstration, or organized militia group. Because if you're doing it on your own, you're a fucking asshole. And if I saw you doing it, I'd call too. Just because it's unnecessary. Okay? So don't be one of those assholes who goes out there fishing for attention. Don't do it. Because you guys, people who do that shit, are the reason why some states just don't want open carry. You guys can go ahead and fucking conceal it. And if... Now, there is a time and place for open carry, don't get me wrong. Please don't get me wrong. When I go out, I've got 100 acres of woods behind my house. They don't belong to me. It's public land. But where I live, we can open carry if we need to. So if I'm jogging with one of my pit bulls or something in the morning, I wear jogging pants and a pretty tight-fitting, some people call them slingshots or sleeveless T-shirts, whatever you want to call them. And there's no way for me to conceal it in that time and place. I don't own a pocket pistol. I don't own one of those tiny little pocket rockets. I own medium to large frame autoloaders and large frame revolvers in terms of handguns. That's what I own, and that's what I'm proficient with, and I don't step outside of that. I'm not saying the other guns are bad guns or whatever. I just don't have the experience, the money, the time to go through all that hassle. So I open carry. But I've only at one time come across somebody when I was out there jogging with my dog, and it was a guy and his son. They were out there squirrel hunting. They didn't care that I don't even think they noticed my gun. And if they did, they weren't worried. You know, the kid out of 22 and his dad was carrying a 410. They were out there hunting. They did not care if they did notice. You know, so that's really the only time that I'm forced into open carrying is when I go out jogging. And I'm in a very secluded area, and the only reason I carry when I'm jogging is because around here we worry about things like bobcats and coyotes, mountain lions, bears. You worry about that where I live in Wisconsin. So I mean, if you're jogging with your dog and you know you're in mid to late fall or whatever, that bear is real hungry. He might decide that your dog's a tasty snack. Well, at that point, I've got 15 rounds of 40 caliber to dissuade his ass. You ain't eating my dog today. Sorry, dude. Go pick somebody else's dog, or better yet, a cat. I don't know. So there's a time and a place for it, but if you're fishing, you're a fucker. And then beyond that, you shouldn't be carrying a firearm if you haven't had proper training. And if your state doesn't require training for you to get a concealed carry permit, or you're in a constitutional carry state like Arizona, or you have laws like here in Wisconsin where if you can own the gun, you can carry it open, you still should get training. Because if you're ever forced into using that gun, you really want to know the laws, and they teach you the basic laws when you go through training classes, and you want to be proficient with that gun. You don't want to fumble around trying to get out of the holster for 2 or 3 minutes because you get shot. And you don't want to be a bad shot, miss, and hit an innocent bystander and go to prison for the rest of your life because you're a bad shot. You know, that would really suck, because although you're trying to save your life or somebody else's, you're going to spend the rest of your life locked up because you were a piss poor shot. It's not, it's not unheard of for that shit to happen. I can't give you any specific instances because I didn't research that before doing this video, but I do know that every time you pull the trigger, at least where I live, you're responsible for every single projectile that comes out of that gun. If your first 2 shots were justified and they were clean hits, and the guy tried to run, you shot a 3rd time and it went across the street and say some crazy shit like it bounced off a car because it was a low velocity shell, whatever, it hit somebody, you're on the hook for assault too for shooting that person. You know, you'll get off on the defense shooting, but you're going to do some serious time for accidentally hitting the other person. So you need to go through training classes. I go through 2 a year, plus I still hold my small arms from the military. So I'm well trained, and I keep training because, it's not like riding a bicycle. It doesn't stay with you forever. Shooting is a perishable skill. If you do not keep current on your training and your practice, you might miss one day when you pick up your gun, actually more than likely. I actually did an experiment when I was younger, and I spent one whole summer with my dad's .38 in my hand every day that I could make it out and go shooting. And I did not shoot once from the beginning of the school year till Christmas break, at least with a handgun. And I got out, and early that fall before we started school, I was hitting bottle caps at 25 feet with a .38. Now it wasn't a snub nose or anything. It was a 4-inch barrel, so I was getting good accuracy. But I was knocking down bottle caps at 25 feet. Come winter break, I was having a hard time hitting bottle caps at 15 feet with that gun. And so it just went to prove that shooting was a perishable sport. Excuse me. My cigarette went out on me for some weird reason. So you got to make sure you practice and you train. And that's not just in your house dry firing. That's not just going to a range and standing from a fixed position and firing into a fixed target. This is going out and taking concealed carry courses and getting into maybe some IDPA. Something where you're moving and firing in bursts. Maybe shooting at moving targets as well. Because that's a real world scenario. The guy's not going to be like, hold on, let me give you a full frontal picture and stand here like they do on the targets for 30 seconds while you draw your gun off your safety, line up your shot, and squeeze the trigger twice. Let me stand still for you while you do that. No, That's not going to be how it happens. And you also need to get yourself to an area, a range when it's dark, so you can deal with muzzle flash and shoot, at least once without hearing protection. It's not advisable to do indoors, and it's not really advisable in general, but I feel you need to. You need to be in the dark and fire a magazine through your weapon with no hearing protection. And then you'll understand how disorienting it can be. You lose a majority of your finite hearing once that gun goes off. Flashes, they stay in your eyes. It's hard to reacquire your sights. And you're going to want to do something like keeping both eyes open and point shooting, but that's a very bad idea. And the term point shooting doesn't even exist in my vocabulary beyond explaining that it's a bad idea. Because there are sights for a reason, and as I said earlier, if you miss and you strike somebody else accidental, you're probably on the hook for it. Okay? Now, when you get yourself into a self-defense situation or a situation where you may or may not have to use your gun, there are decisions to be made. Okay, will deploying your firearm help or hurt? Are you in an area or a position where you can do so safely? Or with as much relative safety as is available when using your firearm to defend yourself? And you need to know your laws, because if you see somebody else getting robbed at gunpoint, it may not be legal for you to intervene. If you're in a gas station during a robbery, it may not be legal for you to intervene. Okay? There are some laws that only allow you to deploy your firearm in defense of yourself and your own life. Yeah, it's a fucked up way to do it, but there are some states where that's the law. So plugging the guy because he came into the convenience store with a shotgun and tried to waste the clerk could actually be illegal because he didn't point the gun at you. So you got to be careful. That being said, there are times where you can use your firearm that you shouldn't. Like if you're in a bank and a bank robbery goes down and two guys come in with shotguns. We'll just use this as an example. And one of them's covering the crowd, tells everybody to get the fuck down. And the other guy goes up to the teller and says, give me the fucking money, put it all in the bag, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. They're not going to kill anybody. More than likely, they're there to get the money and leave. And there's no need to start a gunfight over that money because banks are federally insured and there are laws that require them to just give over the money. And nobody in that bank's going to lose their life savings. Nobody in that bank's going to lose their life. Those guys are trying to get out of there as fast as they possibly can so they can get away with it and spend the money. They're not there to shoot people. Now, if the situation goes sour and they do start, popping shots off and there are shots fired, then yeah, you're going to need to respond. And you need to be ready for that. But there's no reason to try to be a fucking hero if nobody's being shot at because you could cause the deaths of a lot of people by aggravating those individuals by shooting at them. It's true. And then again, but say the scenario's different. Say you're in a convenience store or the gas station, the guy comes in with a knife or a handgun, demands all the money. Still, he's not shooting just like in the prior situation, but since you only have one target and you have a good chance to get a drop on him, it all depends very greatly on the scenario, the situation, and the layout of the store that you're in. But if you can ascertain that you've got a clean drop on them and you can stop this robbery, by all means, go ahead. And the second you feel like you got it under control, you tell that clerk to call the sheriff's office or call the local police department, whatever sort of law enforcement you have. Because you're going to need backup and you're going to need to declare that you employed your firearm in some shape or fashion. If the guy's got a knife and you got a good drop on him, you might have ordered him to the floor without a shot fired. You still have to report it and you still have to stay there. Or maybe the guy had a gun and he tried to turn on you and you shot him. At which point you got to stay there and make the report. And then in terms of something like a mugging or whatever, my feeling on that is weapons free, engage at your will, but make sure that he's not running away, because if you shoot somebody in the back after they've committed the felony, it's not self-defense anymore because you were out of danger at that point. And you got to make sure that you're not going to strike anybody else or any objects or anything like that when you do engage that target, because they are threatening your life. You probably wouldn't give them the money if they weren't threatening severe bodily injury or threatening to take your life. And in terms of home defense, again, I'm going to go with my state's laws. Your state may differ, but if they're in your home and you've told them that they need to go, or that you've told them you hear the door crash down in the middle of the night, or your dogs are going ape shit, and you make the announcement, "I'm armed. You need to leave the residence immediately. I'm calling the police." The second you see them, you can open fire and engage them. In my state. And one thing that I was actually told by a law enforcement officer is to make sure you shoot twice, because if he survives, he can sue you. Isn't that fucked up? That you broke into my house and you were trying to rob me, and I told you to get the fuck out and you didn't. The sheriffs were on their way and I felt that I had to shoot. But because you survived, you can, from prison that you're probably never going to get out of, sue me for everything that I'm worth. So I'm not advocating that you kill people, but I am advocating that you protect yourself in every way possible, including the aftermath. And the last thing that I want to address, I understand this video is getting long, but this is the last thing I want to address. You have to be willing, capable, and able. Okay? Don't carry a firearm if you're afraid you wouldn't have what it takes to use it, because it may be used against you, or somebody else may be taken from you, or may get you killed when somebody finds out you're carrying, and that you're not willing to use it. Okay? And you also have to be willing to overcome the urge to use your firearm in a situation where you may be completely justified in doing so, but to do so would harm yourself or others, or put yourself or others in harm or death's way. You need to know that there's a time and a place to deploy and employ your firearm in defense of yourself or others. And there's also a time when, although you could and you'd be lawful and you could end up being the good guy in the situation, if there is a chance that it could go incredibly far south and you feel like it's just out of your realm of capability, then you might as well keep it in the holster and just stay the fuck down. Okay? And with all that being said, I hope I've given you, kind of some things to think about and kind of how I feel on the situation. And in closing, the way I feel about it is I've been trained. I know what I'm doing. Not only did I grow up in a family where it was normal, I was in the military, and I've also been put in situations as a civilian where I really wish I'd had a firearm on me. So I don't do anything without one anymore. And 99.9 out of 100 times, I keep it concealed and nobody ever even knows I have it. And it's just peace of mind in a holster. And come down to it, I am completely willing, capable, and able to use it, and to also use discretion as to maybe this is a situation where, although I should and could use it, it would only cause more pain and suffering than if I just kept it holstered and let whatever happens happen. So I hope that cleared up a few things for y'all. And as I said, I love your comments. I love hearing from y'all. I try as hard as I can to get back to you with all the other comments, private messages. Video responses are always great. I love to be engaged by my viewers, and I love to become a viewer. When you guys have something to show me, I love watching. Anyways, I'm going to wrap this up and call this a video. And as usual, stay safe, stay vigilant, stay armed, stay out of trouble. Have a wonderful rest of your week and have a great weekend. We got some good weather around here, so I'm probably going to be going out and doing some fishing or some hiking this weekend. And that's it. Semper Fi.